Ferrari is trying to push the accelerator with the new floor for its 2025 single-seater. The need to innovate in Formula One is crucial, especially when the gap to close is significant. As we know, the Maranello team was unable to optimize the performance of the SF-25 in Australia. In wet conditions at the Albert Park circuit, in fact, all the limitations of the setup became clear. For the second round of the 2025 Formula One Championship, the Chinese Grand Prix, a step forward was made, but it seems that problems still persisted at the 5.45 1-kilometer Shanghai International Circuit. We discussed this a few days ago. Thanks to data collected on the Asian track, not corrupted by the difficult environmental conditions in Australia, Ferrari was able to update the simulator with real-world information. This move was quite useful, especially regarding performance with a high fuel load over the 300-kilometer distance. Otherwise, there was still a need to take a step forward in understanding the interaction of the elements. We are referring to the correlation at the rear of the car between the pull rod suspension and aerodynamics. Furthermore, the peak load at the rear has often caused instability, a situation that needs to be addressed with updates to the floor to smooth out the vertical load generated along the floor and, in turn, generate consistent downforce that can stabilize the aerodynamic platform. The prancing horse must necessarily widen the setup window. We know the huge performance difference this move can bring. It is a factor closely related to the lap construction to maximize the car's performance in all areas of the track. Suzuka is an old-school circuit, a real track where even the slightest mistake can weigh heavily on the weekend's outcome. The Ferrari engineers and technicians have decided to bring forward the first aerodynamic update package at the Bahrain International Circuit, which will host the fourth round of the 2024 Formula One season. However, to address the aforementioned issues, the technical team led by Leclerc is trying to bring something to Suzuka as well. Specifically, we are talking about the car's floor, a key component for managing aerodynamic load. According to the information reported by various Italian news media outlets, the Maranello team is still working hard to succeed in this, a particularly complicated task. It is worth remembering that in Formula One there are procedures that cannot be expedited, as the risk of making an error and creating a misleading update is always lurking. Just remember the floor introduced by Ferrari last year at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. There are a couple of options under evaluation. The first involves a true update, which should appear in the FIA's official documents known as car presentation. This update would modify the management of the fluid mass passing through the SF-25 car, aiming to unify the load on the floor and stabilize the downforce. The alternative, however, involves small corrections to already homologated elements of the floor. These are adjustments that are not required to appear in the official documentation from the governing body, a move that would allow Ferrari to gain some advantage while waiting for the actual development in Bahrain. McLaren itself, during the 2024 Formula One season, had carried out a similar operation by adjusting the floor in the diffuser area. Given the tight timelines, the Italian F1 team has set a deadline for tomorrow when a final decision will be made regarding the next steps in view of the third round of the season. All of this, keeping in mind that the potential modified floor could be just one or two if time allows. We will have to wait to see what happens in the coming hours, as the Italian team is pushing as hard as it can. Meanwhile, McLaren hasn't forgotten Ferrari, even though it has impressed in this start of the Formula One season. In a regulatory continuity scenario, it was quite a plausible outcome, considering how last season ended with the British team's triumph, which won the Constructors' Championship. Luckily for the competition, there have been a few small setbacks within the Woking team. We are talking about the second place thrown away by Oscar Piastri and the Shanghai sprint race in China, a mini race in which Lando Norris got a bit confused. In short, the MCL-39 had all the right elements to be perfect. Nevertheless, it took charge of both the drivers' and constructors' standings. Especially regarding the Drivers' Championship, the team led by Andrea Stella is aware that many of the chances for final success lie in the start of the season. Last year, Max Verstappen, capitalizing on every opportunity with his RB20, managed to contain Lando Norris's pursuit, even though his car was no longer the reference car. Despite the flattering start of the season for the world champions, at least in terms of statements, both Chief Executive Officer Zak Brown and Team Principal Andrea Stella fear Ferrari's recovery. According to the former Ferrari engineer, the MCL-39's margin over the competition is minimal, around 1 or 2 tenths in terms of race pace. The Italian manager explained that the historic British team does not think they will be able to dominate the top category for the entire 2025 championship. At the same time, however, they place a lot of hope in the car's development plan. In particular, it is feared that the competition, especially the historic Ferrari team, for a number of reasons, hasn't shown all of its potential. Therefore, resting on their laurels after just 2 races in a very long season is not considered. Is there still potential to be unlocked in the MCL-39? In the last 2 years, the current world champion team has managed to unlock enormous potential from their technical projects. Just think of the start of the 2023 Formula One season, when the papaya-colored cars were desolately in the middle of the grid. From the Austrian Grand Prix, the first timid signs of growth appeared. While in the last campaign, the Woking team started the season on the right foot. From the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at the Imola circuit onwards, there was a clear sense that cars number 4 and 81 were significantly superior to the competition. The English team's ability to react and develop is worrying the competitors. If the MCL-39 were to show the same growth potential as the MCL-38, it would be a big problem for the opponents, especially Ferrari, which has championship aspirations. Assuming that the F1 2025 car represents an extreme evolution of last season's car, it will be necessary to understand whether there is still additional performance to be unlocked from the papaya-colored car. Otherwise, we might witness the technical plateau of the RB20, which dominated the first 5 races of the 2024 Formula One Championship with the Dutch drive, before handing over the mantle of supremacy to the English team's cars in the second part of the season. Realistically, the upcoming triple header is a great opportunity for McLaren, while Ferrari will most likely have to limit the damage once again. On paper, the MCL-39 car will find its ideal habitat in Japan at the Suzuka circuit. Already in 2025, Lando Norris finished behind Max Verstappen, although far from the Dutch world champion. McLaren's unspoken goal is to use its current superiority to deliver a first knockout to the competition in the next 3 races, where the delayed teams will bring new updates but will be forced to make them work quickly. Of course, 2025 Formula One Championship is still very long, but the regulatory revolution of 2026 is just around the corner, and only those with a chance of success will develop the 2025 technical project after the summer break. The regulatory discontinuity forces all teams to reorganize their personnel allocation between those who will follow the current championship and those who will focus on the next one. This division is certainly influenced by the team's championship chances.